I'm curious, if all you have to do is sit and watch this short video so you can put a stop to pretty much every kind of bullying in your life once and for all, will you skip it? Or will you say, I'm worth it, and watch this video right till the end? Awesome. Watch this.
Hey, grab a pen and piece of paper real quick. I want to let you in on a secret that works really well to understand and deal with the confusion you're probably feeling about being bullied. So you can fully understand the situation you're in, so you can learn to protect your feelings, and so you can get back in control of your life. I'll wait a sec so you can grab a pen. Imagine this scenario. What if every time a bully singled you out, you felt empowered and in total control? What if you suddenly became the one who could take care of others, knowing that whatever comes, you can handle it? What if things finally became okay enough again, that you can relax and focus on what's important in your life? Not be distracted by this bullying nonsense every time some lowest common denominator type person has a bad day and wants to take it out on you for some reason. What if every time a bully singled you out, you kept doing whatever you wanted to do and weren't worried about the bully for any reason? What if you finally knew the perfect things to say to your bully to make him back off? Sound like a stretch? I used to think so too, till it happened to me. In the past few years, I've gone from being singled out by what seemed like every loser with an axe to grind, having to change course, steer around, and avoid people like that constantly, to doing exactly what I want and not even really noticing people like that anymore. I deal with them when I have to, I help others if I can, but for the most part, I'm just not resonating as a good potential victim to bullies anymore, because I don't fall into their trap. I've also used the exact same thing I'm about to show you to save myself massive amounts of effort and energy in my other relationships. It's indispensable for deciding whether someone is really your friend and has your best interests at heart or not. The thing that got me there was discovering the secret strategy bullies use to control you. The thing that got me there was discovering the secret of the catch-22 lose-lose dilemma trap. Understanding this strategy has really helped me keep my forward momentum. In my business relationships, in my friendships, and even dealing with my family and being able to protect my girl. Understanding the catch-22 lose-lose trap has eliminated bullies in my life for good. So why do you need to know this? Well, how else were you planning to beat your next bully? Everybody will tell you that having confidence to ignore a bully is the most important tool to have to avoid being targeted by a bully in the first place. And I think that's true, if you have real confidence. And in order to have real confidence, what does everybody tell you to do? Learn to stick up for yourself. Learn how to fight back. Well, that's great. Knowing martial arts and things like that will make you feel good about yourself and your body, whether you're male or female. And it'll help you know what to do to protect yourself in a fight. But fights in the real world come with real world problems. From the playground to the real grown-up world, from university to the office, you cannot expect to realistically solve anything if you let it get so far as to become physical, right? In fact, fighting will probably make things worse and you know it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't know what to do if you're ever in one. So everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if someone is bullying you, what should you do? The other thing everybody will tell you is to tell an adult you trust or someone in higher authority to deal with it for you. Well, has that ever worked for you before? I'm asking seriously now. Other than making you feel like a rat for not being able to deal with the problem yourself, has that ever worked for you before to actually make the situation better? Or has it always just made the situation worse? Just look at these comments all over the internet. There's pages and pages of this stuff. It's happening in front of teachers when my son says something to them to get help. They have a no tattletale policy, deal with it on your own. And when my son does deal with it, he gets suspended. There's agony out there, and you really don't have to look very far to find it. There's no standard procedure in this school, no written steps on what is to be the punishment as far as detention, fighting, harassment, etc. So this bully only got a 3-day suspension after punching, beating, and kicking 2 girls in the face during lunch. Second time on record attacking my daughter. And you'll see this when you go through stuff. You see this with people in like, especially like 16, 17-year-olds, where the school is like, oh, if it was an assault, you're going to have to take it. It's a police matter. You're going to have to take it to the cops. So if you go down to the cops to take care of it, they're like, oh, well, it happened on school property. We can't take care of that. That's not our business. So anyway, they'll just pass it back and forth, and you find that stuff everywhere. The work situation is no different. I've never seen an HR department that actually ever resolved anything anywhere I've ever worked, other than to turn that person into a rat and a company-wide leper who ends up leaving. Have you? So what do you do if you can't realistically fight your way out and you can't realistically ask for help? What do you do if you're tired of changing schools or changing jobs or changing your plans because of bullying? What do you do if you're being bullied and you feel trapped? Because you are. Let's get real here. If we want to understand bullying, we have to be really honest and realistic about what's really happening. Bullying, for our definition, is the enjoyment of another's distress because the experience of causing that distress gives the bully pleasure. Since a bully doesn't just come up out of the blue and start throwing punches, there's bound to be some insults first. Let's take a realistic look at why those insults are such a big part of the whole complete bullying incident. Because if we're going to take a realistic look at bullying, we're going to have to lay it out on a timeline. And there's a lot more going on than just this section 4 here, the actual bullying incident, which everybody always talks about is, what can we prove? What happened? Who said what? Who did what? What can we prove? What goes in as evidence? But to actually understand the whole problem, you have to look at the whole thing on a timeline. There's a backstory there. There's something going on with the bully. You don't know what it is right now. He woke up, had a bad day, got yelled at, and then just wants to go and take it out on somebody or whatever it is. We don't know what the backstory is right now. But you do have to acknowledge that there's something else going on. The guy doesn't just come out of the blue and start wailing. There's something going on first. Now, the selection process is just the same. Has the bully singled you out specifically, or has he or she just start a fight with anyone who will have it? There is a certain selection criteria and definitely a process in there somewhere that belongs to every incident. And finally, there's got to be, obviously, some sort of catch and control mechanism. You have to be caught before you can be bullied. And it hasn't gotten physical yet. There's a definite point where you can't run away, or you can run away, but you don't. And it's only after that point that the incident actually starts. So we're going to have a look at that. There's obviously some kind of strategy going on here. And then, of course, you have the bullying incident, which is the part we're all familiar with and what everybody talks about. But to really understand the whole situation and start to unravel it, you're going to have to acknowledge that there are these different parts to it. So why doesn't the bully just come up and start fighting? What's with all the insults first? If bullying is the enjoyment of your distress when you're caught and can't escape, and if a bully has to catch you before you can be bullied, what would have to happen so you couldn't get away? Is it the insults that initially catch you so you can't get away? But how? How could these insults make it so you can't get away? Let's look at this a different way here. Anything you go do is going to fall somewhere on the scale of good for you or bad for you. It's either win or lose. You're going to come out ahead if you do that, or you're going to lose if you do that. And likewise, if you have two things to choose from, they're both going to be somewhere on that scale of, it's really, really good, or it's not quite as good. But if you're in that situation where you're deciding between two things, you're going to most probably take the thing that's better. It's better for you. You will have a bigger win for it. So as long as things are in the good section, like they're good things, it doesn't matter which one you really choose. and they're going to be at different levels. Some things are better than others, and if you're choosing between two things, you're going to take the better one, most probably, right? Or have a good reason, or tell yourself a good reason why you're not taking the better one. And a decision is actually still pretty easy to make if one of the things is really bad, but one of the things is really good. Something good is going to happen if you do that. So you're going to choose that. That's easy. But where the dynamic of the decision changes is somewhere down here when things are just whatever, it doesn't matter which one I do, things are just kind of, well, I'm not going to win much, I'm not going to lose much. But there's this spot here in the kind of the gray area where there's a definite threshold that you get down there where it's like, well, this is kind of bad, I don't want to do it. And there's kind of a threshold in there that for you to do anything bad where you will lose, you're going to start to need outside influence to make you do those things. And there's very bad things out there. So the danger is that if you have someone exerting force on you to do something that you don't want to do, you start to get into a different dynamic in that decision. And if you're not careful, it can easily become the old catch-22 lose-lose dilemma. Dilemma is Greek for two premises, dilemma. The double bind, as it's known in psychology. If you're not careful, it can easily become the old catch-22. Damned if you don't, and damned if you do. And all it takes is one last little twist to lock you in. Which can be as simple as a question like, why do you make me do this to you? Because the catch-22 lose-lose dilemma hides a terrible secret. The catch-22 lose-lose dilemma hides the secret that once you're in it, it forms a closed mental loop. And it's impossible to think your way out of that loop. You can't think your way out of it. It's a trap. Now you're not going to be able to think your way out, fight back, or run away. Now the bullying incident begins. Don't just take my word for it here, blindly. Let's look closer. Let's see for yourself. So we go over to Wikipedia here. The double bind is an emotionally distressing dilemma in communication, which is an individual receives two or more conflicting messages, and one message negates the other. This creates a situation in which a successful response to one message results in a failed response to the other and vice versa, so that the person will automatically be wrong regardless of response. The double bind occurs when the person cannot confront the inherent dilemma and therefore can neither resolve nor opt out of the situation. And then they go into the explanation of the primary injunction, the secondary injunction, and the tertiary injunction. We'll get into that in a second here. But the essence of a double bind is two conflicting demands, each on a different logical level, neither of which can be ignored or escaped. This leaves the subject torn both ways, so that whichever demand they try to meet, the other demand cannot be met. I must do it, but I can't do it, is a typical description of the double bind experience. A primary injunction is imposed on the subject, do X or I will punish you, which is the first side of it. A secondary injunction is imposed on the subject that's conflicting with the first at a higher and more abstract level, on a different logical level. So if the first one is do X or I will punish you, the second one is you must do X, but only do it because you want to. It's also unnecessary for this injunction to be expressed verbally. But you must do X, but only do it because you want to. And the idea of because you want to is on a way more abstract, higher level than do this or I will beat you up, right? Or whatever it is. And if necessary, here on number 5, a tertiary injunction, which is the final twist in it, is imposed on the subject to prevent them from escaping the dilemma. And that's where the why do you make me do this to you comes in. It's on another level again. So in this sense, the double bind differentiates itself from a simple contradiction to a more inexpressible internal conflict because it's on those different logical levels. The subject really wants to meet the demands of the primary injunction, but fails each time through an inability to address the situation's incompatibility with the demands of the secondary injunction. Subject may express feelings of extreme anxiety in such a situation as they attempt to fulfill the demands of the primary injunction with obvious contradictions in their actions.
Well, okay, this is probably as good a time as any to throw in a little disclaimer here, people. This is not meant to be taken as medical advice. I'm not some PhD or hypnotherapist or any therapist. I'm just a regular guy. I just took the best of the techniques I could find that worked for me. It's only after kind of seeing the agony that's out there. There's too many good, smart, sensitive people that just don't know this stuff. But really, you'd have to be crazy to listen to me. The good news is that if it's because someone's driving you crazy, I'm probably exactly the guy you need to be listening to.
Anyways, let's look at this like a math problem. You'd have do X or you'd be punished as the primary injunction, and you better enjoy it as the secondary injunction. And then why do you make me do this to you as the third tertiary injunction to lock it all in? So it keeps going around and around and around. You can't do this because of that, and you can't do that because of this. Catch-22 gets used by kids, teens, and adults on each other, both male and female. Girls and women may often try to exclude each other from the group instead of beating each other up, for example, but it's still the catch-22 lose-lose dilemma they use to do it, for the same result. To trap you mentally so you can't think what to do next. To get your ability to think out of the picture. So why does a bully choose you? It's because you're smart. Because you have good values that you can be pinned up against. Because with your ability to think out of the way, the bully has completely neutralized your main go-to asset. And without even knowing that you're in a trap, which unfortunately goes around and around causing you further distress long after the actual incident is over. The bully's strategy is to trap you mentally so you can't think what to do, you can't get away, you can't fight back, and you can't prove nothing. Oh yeah? Well, every attack has an appropriate defense, and every defense has a counterattack. A mental attack or an attack on your feelings is the same. There's an appropriate defense.
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
And in how to beat a bully by yourself, we go into lots of examples. So let's break down an adult catch-22 lose-lose dilemma here so you can see for yourself what it looks like, what it feels like, how it works, and start to learn how to get yourself out of them so you can avoid them and get on with your life. Because if you understand the catch-22 trap well enough, not only will you be able to understand and clear up your own confusion, you can even reverse a catch-22 on a bully on the spot and control the situation. You'll know how to beat a bully by yourself. Do you like that? Then click the button to get your fast start worksheets for the main tutorial, so we can start breaking down and understanding your situation.